One image. Not a link. Not a file you opened. Just an image sent to an iPhone. The user never tapped it. Never saw it. Never knew it arrived. And within seconds, their phone was fully compromised. This is not theory. This is BLASTPASS. 7th September 2023. Washington, D.C. A human rights activist receives a message through iMessage. There is no text in the message. Just an image attachment. He does not tap it. He does not open it. He does not even pick up his phone. It does not matter. 48 hours later, researchers from Citizen Lab, a cybersecurity research group at the University of Toronto, examine his device. What they find stops them cold. Pegasus spyware is already inside his phone. His microphone is active. His private messages are being silently forwarded to someone else. His location is being tracked in real time. The image had already done its job. Silently. Completely. Without leaving a trace the victim could ever see. In part 1, we covered how a single photo could turn an Android phone into a spyware device. If you have not watched that episode yet, I would strongly recommend going back and watching it first. The link is in the description below. It will give you the full picture of how image-based attacks work, and why they are far more dangerous than most people realize. Today, the same idea returns. But with a different weapon. A more sophisticated target. And consequences that reached governments, courtrooms, and Supreme Courts around the world. Because this time, the attack did not target an Android device. This time, it broke into the iPhone, a device that millions of people around the world trust as the most secure smartphone ever built. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly how it happened, who was behind it, and most importantly, what you can do right now to protect yourself. This is BLASTPASS. Chapter 1, The Image That Broke the iPhone. Let us start with what BLASTPASS actually is. BLASTPASS is the name given by Citizen Lab to a zero-click exploit chain, and I will explain exactly what that means in a moment. Discovered in September 2023. It targeted Apple iPhones. And it exploited two vulnerabilities that Apple did not even know existed at the time. A vulnerability, simply put, is a crack in the software. A flaw that a skilled attacker can find and use to get inside a system. The dangerous kind, the kind used here, is called a zero-day vulnerability. Zero-day means the company that built the software has had 0 days to fix it because they did not know it existed. By the time they find out, the damage may already be done. BLASTPASS used two of them together. The first was a flaw inside Apple's ImageIO framework. ImageIO is simply the part of Apple's software responsible for processing image files, reading them, displaying them, generating previews. A specially crafted image file, one that had been engineered to contain hidden malicious instructions, could manipulate the phone's memory during that processing. And once memory is manipulated in the right way, an attacker can begin executing their own code on your device. Apple rated this vulnerability as critical. The second flaw was inside Apple's PassKit framework, the system that powers Apple Wallet and digital passes like boarding passes and tickets. This flaw allowed malicious content to bypass Apple's security validation. In simple terms, it let the attack escape the protective box Apple had built around iMessage. Apple also rated this vulnerability as critical. Together, these two flaws formed what investigators call an exploit chain. One flaw gets the attacker inside the door. The second flaw lets them walk freely through the rest of the house. No tap required. No confirmation required. No awareness required. The exploit chain was linked to NSO Group, an Israeli surveillance technology company. NSO Group does not hack individuals directly. What they do is sell surveillance capabilities to government clients around the world. And those government clients have used this technology to target human rights activists, journalists, opposition politicians, corporate executives, and diplomats. NSO Group calls Pegasus a lawful interception tool, meaning a tool built to help governments legally monitor serious criminals and terrorists. Citizen Lab calls it a weapon of mass surveillance. The evidence, increasingly, supports the latter description. Chapter 2, How the Image Hacked the Phone. Let me walk you through exactly what happened. Step by step. Because understanding this is important. Stage 1, the crafted image. Engineers working for the attacker created a specially modified WEBP image file. WEBP is simply a common image format used across the internet, the same kind of image you might receive from a friend or a news website. To anyone looking at it, this image appeared completely harmless. A photo. A graphic. A simple attachment. But hidden inside the image data were carefully engineered instructions designed to manipulate the phone's memory the moment the image was processed. Stage 2. Delivery through iMessage. The image was sent through Apple's iMessage platform. Here is the critical detail. When iMessage receives any attachment, the system automatically processes it in the background to generate a preview and a thumbnail. This happens silently, without the user doing anything at all. The user does not need to open the message. The user does not need to tap anything. The moment the iPhone processes the image, the attack begins. Stage 3. Memory exploit. Apple's system attempts to process the malformed image. The hidden instructions inside the image corrupt the phone's memory structures during that processing. This gives the attacker the ability to execute their own code inside the iMessage environment. In simple terms, they now have a foothold inside your phone. Stage 4. Escaping the sandbox. Apple had already anticipated this kind of attack. Back in 2014, they built a security system specifically for iMessage called BLASTDoor. Think of BLASTDoor as a protective quarantine box. Any attachment that arrives through iMessage is processed inside this box, isolated from the rest of the phone. Even if something malicious arrives, BLASTDoor is designed to contain it. But the second vulnerability, the passkey flaw, allowed the attacker to break out of that box. By exploiting the way Apple Wallet handles validation, the attack escaped the sandbox entirely. And once outside that protective box, the door to the rest of the phone was open. Stage 5. Pegasus deployment. With access now beyond the sandbox, Pegasus spyware could be installed. Pegasus is designed to operate primarily inside the phone's memory, leaving as few permanent traces as possible. This makes it extremely difficult to detect through normal means. Once active, the spyware begins its work silently. What Pegasus can do? Once Pegasus is inside a device, it can read messages from iMessage, WhatsApp, Signal, and Telegram. It can access emails and personal files. It can activate the microphone and listen to live conversations. It can silently trigger the camera. It can track GPS location in real time. It can extract saved passwords and browsing history. And here is the most important point to understand. Pegasus does not need to break encryption. Signal and WhatsApp use extremely strong encryption to protect messages while they travel across the internet. But Pegasus does not attack the messages in transit. It reads them directly from your screen, after they have already been decrypted and displayed. Once the spyware controls the device, encryption becomes completely irrelevant. Chapter 3. How the attack was discovered. 5th September 2023. Researchers at Citizen Lab were conducting a routine forensic examination of an iPhone belonging to someone working with a civil society organization in Washington, D.C. During the examination, they noticed unusual background activity on the device. Processes were running that had no reason to be running. Digging deeper, they found indicators they recognized, the technical signatures of a Pegasus infection. They traced the infection backward through the device logs. The entry point was a single iMessage attachment. A WebP image file. One the victim had never opened. Citizen Lab immediately notified Apple. On 5th September, Citizen Lab detects the attack. On 6th September, Apple is notified. On 7th September, just 48 hours later, Apple releases an emergency security patch. That patch became iOS 16.6.1. It fixed the BLASTPASS exploit chain entirely. The scale of exposure. At the time of discovery, more than 1 billion iPhones worldwide were technically vulnerable. Every device running iOS 16.6 or earlier could potentially have been targeted. Now, it is important to be clear here. Pegasus is not designed for mass infection. It is not a virus that spreads randomly from person to person. It is a precision surveillance tool, used selectively against specific individuals. But the existence of the vulnerability meant that a vast number of devices were exposed, and any of them could be targeted if someone with access to this technology chose to do so. India alone had an estimated 150 to 200 million active iPhones during that period. Every single one of them was technically vulnerable until the patch was installed. Chapter 4. The real targets. Pegasus is not built for casual surveillance. It is built for power. And the targets tell that story clearly. The individual whose device led to the discovery of BLASTPASS was a human rights activist in Washington, D.C. Citizen Lab has not publicly identified the person for their own safety. Their device had been compromised for an unknown period before the discovery. Subsequent forensic investigations identified Pegasus infections on devices belonging to journalists in India, Mexico, and Azerbaijan, many of whom were investigating corruption or human rights violations at the time. Citizen Lab also reported that a Middle Eastern opposition politician had their device infected for more than a year. Every message, every meeting, every private conversation, silently transmitted to someone else. India and Pegasus. India has appeared in Pegasus investigations before. In 2021, an international journalism consortium known as the Pegasus Project identified more than 300 Indian phone numbers within a leaked list of potential surveillance targets. Those numbers included journalists, political figures, government officials, and individuals connected to opposition parties. India's Supreme Court later formed a technical committee to investigate. The committee confirmed the presence of spyware indicators on some of the devices examined. However, the full details of that investigation were never publicly disclosed. BLASTPASS emerged in 2023. A newer version of the same surveillance capability. Quieter. More sophisticated. Harder to detect. Chapter 5: Why Apple could not prevent this. Apple's security architecture is genuinely one of the strongest in the consumer technology industry. Sandboxing, which means keeping apps isolated from each other. Code signing, which means only verified software can run. The Secure Enclave, a separate chip dedicated to protecting your most sensitive data. The App Store review process. These protections are extremely effective against most threats most people will ever encounter. But BLASTPASS revealed something deeper about software security. Every feature, no matter how useful, creates an attack surface. iMessage automatically processes attachments to generate previews. That is a convenient feature. It makes the experience smooth and fast. But that convenience feature became the exact mechanism through which this attack was delivered. The problem was not the feature itself. The problem was the extraordinarily complex software required to support it, and within that complexity, to cracks that no one had found yet. The zero-day market. This brings us to something that most people do not realize exists. There is an underground market, and in some cases a legitimate commercial market, for zero-day vulnerabilities. Researchers and brokers find these flaws and sell them, sometimes for enormous sums. A basic iOS vulnerability may sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. A complete zero-click iPhone exploit chain, one that requires no action from the victim, can sell for $2 to $3 million. Surveillance technology companies then integrate these exploits into their commercial spyware platforms and sell access to government clients. Surveillance, in 2023, is an industry. With pricing. With clients. With annual contracts. Chapter 6: Lockdown Mode. In 2022, Apple introduced a feature called Lockdown Mode. It is not designed for everyday users. It is designed specifically for journalists, activists, lawyers, executives, diplomats, anyone who faces an elevated risk of being targeted by this kind of attack. When lockdown mode is enabled, it dramatically reduces the phone's attack surface. Many types of message attachments are blocked. Link previews are disabled. Certain web technologies are restricted. Wired connections are blocked when the phone is locked. BLASTPASS relied entirely on automatic message attachment processing. Lockdown mode disables that functionality. If it had been enabled on the victim's device in Washington, D.C., the exploit would very likely have failed. The problem is that most high-risk individuals do not know lockdown mode exists. Should you enable it? For most everyday users, lockdown mode may feel unnecessarily restrictive. It does limit some normal functions. But for anyone in a profession that could make them a target, enabling it is a meaningful, practical layer of protection. For everyone else, the most important defense is far simpler. Keep your device updated. Apple released the BLASTPASS patch within 48 hours of being notified. But millions of users delayed installing it. During that window, every unpatched device remained vulnerable. A software update notification on your phone is not an inconvenience. It is a security door being locked. Install it. Chapter 7: What this means for you. 3 questions worth asking yourself right now. First, is your device fully updated? Not almost updated. Fully updated. Check your settings today. Second, could your profession make you a target? Journalists, lawyers, activists, corporate executives, government officials, anyone handling sensitive information on behalf of others. If the answer is possibly yes, lockdown mode is worth understanding. Third, do you know how to check if your device has been compromised? Citizen Lab and Amnesty International have released a forensic tool called the Mobile Verification Toolkit. It can identify potential Pegasus indicators on a mobile device. It requires some technical knowledge to use, but documentation is publicly available. If you have genuine reason to suspect you may have been targeted, it is a resource worth knowing about. Closing. Part 1 of this series showed how a single photo could compromise an Android device. Part 2 has shown how a single image could compromise an iPhone. The operating system does not matter. The brand does not matter. Every feature is a potential attack surface. Every convenience introduces new risk. And somewhere in the world, there are organizations with the resources, the motivation, and the budget to weaponize those risks. Zero-click attacks are one of the most dangerous categories of cyber weapons ever created. Because the victim never clicks, never downloads anything, never does anything wrong. The device simply betrays them. But BLASTPASS was not the most powerful iPhone exploit ever discovered. That title belongs to something even more dangerous. An attack capable of compromising iPhones using nothing more than a PDF file. No image, no link, a PDF. And the damage it caused went far beyond one device. That exploit was called forced entry. And it did not just change how the world understands cyber surveillance. It changed how governments responded to it. That story is next on CyberWall.